Hi guys, in this video we're going to make Mulan. We're going to make her into a doll cake, so I've got a sphere shaped sponge cake here and I'll put links in the description box below for the tin I've used. So we're going to buttercream this to our little cake board. So the cake board's just the same size as the bottom of my sphere, which is 6 inches. So I've cut this in half and we're going to buttercream in between the layers and pop that back on. And then we'll cover all the way over in buttercream. Now for this one, I'm creating little cone shapes that are going to sit underneath her dress so that it looks like it's ruffled, and this will just keep the ruffles sticking out. And you can do it without, but I find the dress stays up easier. And this is just fondant that I'm using for this one here. I've got a yellow fondant ready dyed, it just saves me dyeing it for this one, and it's a little bit brighter than I want, so I'm going to mix a bit of my white fondant in there with it. And I'm going to give it a roll out so it's big enough to cover that whole cake. Now I've taken a cake board to draw around the edge of for this one. So this one's 10-inch drum and we're just using it to cut a circle out from. If we cut a smaller one, we'll probably find that the dress doesn't quite come to the bottom and then our cake would peek out. So anywhere where it doesn't quite meet, we'll just give it a little bit of a stretch, and we're just going to push it down in between those white pieces of fondant that we put on underneath, like that. And I've dyed a pale pink fondant now. I'm going to roll this out big enough to put on a cake board. So the cake board that I drew around earlier is the one that I'm covering, which is going to go under our cake when it's done. Now I do have a video on covering cake boards if you want any more detail on doing this. And I'm adding a little bit of water to my fondant just to stick it. And don't forget the cake is on a 6-inch cake board anyway underneath, so that's what's going to sit on our newly iced board. I've dyed some fondant with an extra blue, so I've got a nice deep colour blue, and I'm just going to cut out a bit of a curve, and this is just going to cover part of the skirt up. In the film she's got quite a long slim fitting dress, whereas ours is quite a big one, so it doesn't look the same as that in the film. At the moment she looks a little bit like Snow White in the colours that we've put her in, and I'm just going to put in some creases, just using the side of my little finger there, just to push the dints in a little bit deeper. Now I've got a plastic dowel that's going to go through the centre of the cake. Push it right through till it hits the board. We'll just add a couple of extra crease lines. Now my dowel is going to be too long as it is, so we're going to take a little bit off the top. So I would say probably leave about 2 inches at the most, and then we can just trim this down. Now I just put a little dint in with the scissors and then I can snap this off, and that can go back into your cake again. So now we're going to work on the body, and we're going to use modelling paste so it dries nice and firm, and we're going to dye it up in a skin tone. Once it's dyed, we're going to roll your body into a bit of a cone shape, and the thinner bit is going to be the bottom of your body, the wider bit the top. I'm going to pinch in a neck into the top and then start to shape it a bit more like a body. If it's a bit long, trim a bit off the bottom, and what we're going to do is we're going to try and push that down over the dowel. Now the dowel's quite thick, so do be careful when you're pushing it over. Okay. Then we want some more of the flesh colour for the head. So start with a ball, and we're going to make it a little bit teardrop shaped, and we're just going to push a line across the centre where we want our eyes to go. If you want to deepen the eye sockets, just push in a bit with your fingers. With the modelling tool, I'm just pushing down a little bit to create a nose, and then we're going to poke 2 little nostrils underneath where the nose is, and I'm just marking on now just faintly where I want her eyes to go. So I'm doing like the upper curve. Just gives me a bit of a guideline when I add the eyes, and I'm going to mark on the bottom bit just faintly. So we're going to take some more flesh colour for the mouth, and it's almost a bit like a triangle but with rounded corners, and I'm just going to push a dint in the top, and then we're going to bring a line from either side sort of down in a downwards point to separate the top and bottom lip, and we're going to stick those in place on the face. Just play around with those till you're happy with the position. I'm going to paint them up now. I've got a nice rose colour. So now we're doing the eyes. We want a piece of white rolled nice and thin using a plunger cutter, and I'm going to cut that in half, and I'm just going to gently taper that corner. I'm going to try and push that in the place of the lines that we've marked on, and just do exactly the same with the other one. So you can manoeuvre it around a little bit when you've got it on the face. So I've just got another piece of the flesh colour, and I've cut a small circle out of that, and then I've cut that in half, and these are going to become her eyes. So push those in place, and we will deepen them shortly, or we'll deepen the colour of them shortly. So with a deeper colour brown now, go around the very edge of that circle that you've put in. And we want a little bit of black fondant now. Just a tiny round ball for the centre of each eye. And if you squash it down, it will just make it a little bit larger, so just squish it till it becomes the size you want. And again, using the black fondant, we're going to roll a nice thin piece, which is going to become our eyelashes. Same for the other one. And just a tiny round white dot of fondant to go in each eye. You can paint it in if you prefer. And then we're going to stick our eyebrows on. Again, if you prefer, you can always paint them. We're going to roll a tiny thin piece of black. Just give it a bit of a bend in the middle. So she's got a nice arch on the eyebrows. And we're just going to push that on the top of the cake dowel. For the next bit, we're going to mix a green. So it's not a really bright green, and we're going to roll it thin. And we're going to cut a nice thin long strip from this. And we're going to put this on our actual body now. So I'm getting a little bit of water over the body. I'm going to wrap it around almost like a scarf. So it's going to go over her shoulders and it's going to come down a little bit at the front. Just leaving a little V shape where her neck is. And then you can trim that off. So at the moment she looks a bit like she's wearing a bikini. This time I'm going to use a deeper green. And it's just going to be a thinner piece than last time. And it's going to go along the very edge of that last one. And it can cross over a little bit at the front. And crop that off there. So back to the blue that we used on the skirt. Roll it nice and thin, otherwise we're going to add our extra inches to her waist. And again, we want a thin strip that's just the width of the waist, sort of coming from under a bust till it reaches the dress, and give that a bit of water to hold it in place. Burgundy this time, creating another strip, thinner than the blue strip. Again, it's going to go round the waist, and we're just going to add some lines in with the modelling tool, so it looks more like it's wrapped around her. And the green that we've used for covering her body originally, the lighter one, we're going to use again for the arms. So I've rolled a long cone, and then I'm going to cut some off at the end. And the wider end, I'm kind of squashing down so it comes down to quite a long point, so she's got quite a big baggy sleeve. And then once you've got that shape, you can stick that on at the shoulder. And then just play around positioning the arms where you want them to go. And she's just going to need some hands. So the leftover skin colour that you have, you're going to create some little hands out of. So we want an oval that's quite flat, and you're just going to cut a small little triangle out of one side for the hand, and then that can be stuck directly to the dress. And just do the same again for the other hand. Now for her hair, I'm just using black. Again, it's ready dyed, and I'm just rolling a big oval shape, and I'm going to add a bit of water to the back of her head. Now if her head feels like it's moving around too much, leave it overnight before you add the hair, if that makes it easier, because the harder you press on the head, the more likely it is that you're going to knock it off. And you do want to give it a good push down in place. And I'm going to try and pull it slightly further over at that one side of her face, and then we're going to add a parting just with the modelling tool. And then you want to roll some tiny thin pieces so that we've just got a little piece that will come down across her forehead, and you can add another piece if you like. There she is, done. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Do be sure to check out my other doll cake videos. Thank you for watching.
If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.